All right, and we are back, North Florida Wrestling fans. Today we got Jason Westlager on the show again. We went and took up a team to the Deep South, the Panhandle Punishers, K through 4 team, K through 8 team, as well as the Not Plain Janes on the women's side of things. We're going to talk it up a little bit about the strength of the North Florida Wrestling and the Tri-State Tough Guy, Tough Girl series that is coming up this preseason, so stay tuned.
So takeaway, I agree. Very well organized. They did a really good job. I've seen, a number of parent complaints and stuff about the way it was run, and I didn't feel any of that. I thought it was extremely well done. We got a ton of matches for the kids in the area. I think the girls, the Not Plain Janes, had 9 matches, which was pretty incredible. Dual matches, mind you. The K through 4, that was more your realm, but I want to say they had 12.
Yeah, we had quite a bit. I was jumping between K4 and K8 because I had kids on both teams, and so it was a lot of matches. And we had a couple kids go with 2 teams. Yeah, Evan Hill, he ended up with I think maybe 22 duels just in and of itself.
Yeah, so, we had from our team, Weston Middleton wrestled the K4 team and the K8 team. He was running back and forth, same kind of thing Evan Hill was doing, and man, those kids got their money's worth. They I think they were a little bit tired. I think Weston was supposed to wrestle the individuals, and by the time that came, he had just had, like you said, 22 matches in 2 days.
Well, he had some close matches too, where he was fighting the entire time. So I get that, man. They wrestled tough. And the Punisher, we didn't. I think do you remember how we finished?
Yeah, so the girls finished 5th. The Not Plain Janes finished 5th overall, made the semis, and did the old semi slide where they lost again in the Consi semis, and then we won the 5th place match against the team that we had beat previously by 30. It turned into about an 8-point duel this time. So that team finished 5th and did extremely well. Very proud of all the girls that came with us. The K through 4 team finished 9th overall. I think that was out of 22 teams. So very well on that. And then the K through 8 Punishers, man, they had a heck of a run. So there was word going around from a few people that the tournament director, and I don't even know if this is true, but the tournament director apparently put a bunch of the good teams that looked or appeared to have pretty stacked teams. He tried to put them all in the same pool, so someone would fight out of that pool. The K through 8 Panhandle Punishers ended up in that pool, so maybe he thought that we were more experienced than we actually were, or gave us a little bit more credit, which hey, we'll take it. But our first match in the K through 8 was against Roundtree, who won the darn thing. Then we wrestled Palmetto, who was top 3. We wrestled the Untouchables, top 5. The list goes on. And so that K through 8 team started off 1-4, and ran it to 5, or I'm sorry, they started off 1-5, and they ran 4 in a row to get to 5-5 in pool play. Then they made it into the bronze pool as a result, which is all the teams that finished 5th or 6th in their pool. And they ran the table in the bronze pool and made it all the way to the finals to set up a rematch with that Morris Fitness, who had beat us the first time by 8. And I think they beat us similarly the second time around. But that Punishers team started off 1-5 and finished 8-6. So it was really cool to see.
Well, and what I want to kind of point out is at least from what I gathered on both teams, this was a lot of kids' first time at a big tournament or a big dual tournament where, it's not just seeing 1 or 2 individual kids that are really good. You're seeing entire teams full of kids that are really good. I felt bad for Steven, my kid. I told him yeah, it's going to be a tough tournament. You're going to run up against some kids. And then the first 3 matches, he's like, dude, what? And what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, man. And there's levels. But yeah, it started to even out, and they started kind of getting their footing up under them, and they finished off a really, really good, a really, really strong team toward the end. And these 2-day long grueling things where you're there all day. It was run very fantastically, but just with some tournaments, it's going to be a long grind, and that's a part of the battle. Being able to stay in it, and they finished really strong. They should be very proud of themselves.
Yeah, truly. I mean, so I was co-head coach, I guess you want to call it, on the Not Playing Janes. So I was pretty much with the girls all of day one, and we finish up pretty early in the morning on day two. And so at that point, I think the Punishers, the K-8 team, had reeled off 4 straight wins when I jumped in, and it was at the beginning of the bronze pool when I jumped in. So Coach Birch was heading up that team, the Lincoln assistant coach. Um, and when I jumped in, it was the very beginning of that bronze pool, and man, you could just tell that the kids were exhausted because it had already been 14 matches at that point, or however many they wrestled. But from day one, when I was helping out with the K-8 team to day two, the biggest thing I noticed was the camaraderie. We had kids. We had a lot of Grappling House kids on the team. We had a lot of Niceville kids on the team. And I think we had 3 or 4 other schools in the area represented on that Panhandle Punishers team. And, they see each other at these tournaments, but they don't really know one another. And they're rooting for their teammates. But at the first duel of the day, that's not really their teammate yet. But then through the course of day one and into day two, they're talking, goofing around on the side, playing with one another, rooting each other on. And all of a sudden, it turned from, I don't know these people, to like, that's my boy over there. Let's make sure he wins this match. Let's, root for him real hard. And I really love that about these duels.
Well, I do want to point out, and I told his mom, and I didn't get a chance to talk to his dad about this, but both Bear and John on your Grappling House are very good leaders. Like that's something that I had noticed throughout the day, throughout the weekend. They interacted both with their K-8 team, but as well with the K-4 team,
Mm-hmm.
and I really like that. That shows a lot of just leadership capabilities. I think they deserve a lot of credit in bringing them together. Maybe it's having 6 7 siblings that kind of help out, but they seem to really take a natural position to that.
Yeah, on that note, they come from strong families, not just strong wrestling families, which they obviously have, but they come from uh, just very good people. They're both of their dads behave the same way. They're both just natural leaders, and they really help out a lot with the club, and it's you see that in their kids, and it's cool to see. Those kids are going to go places outside of wrestling as a result of the characteristics that you just mentioned, and it was really nice to see that camaraderie start to happen. And then, not only just for that event in particular and future Punisher events that we do, but I'm excited for when we do this series here. All these kids are going to see one another, and they're going to be hanging out throughout the day. And I always say success breeds success. When you see your boy out there doing well, and you're really watching and paying attention to a match, you very well could learn something from someone you now consider your friend that you might not have watched his match so closely before. So
Yeah, and just outside of the Punishers and the Not Playing Janes, we had a couple Panhandle and North Florida kids go up there and represent really well. And like I said, that's a tough tournament. I know Pace sent a team. The Patriots out of Dothan, they sent a team. They're close enough. They might as well be family as well.
yep.
All the way over. I saw a Swanee kid was over there, so we're sending kids up there. I know Niceville, Matthew went, I think, like 10 and or JJ Martinez went 10-2, I think,
That's
something like
impressive.
that. So it's showing out.
Yeah, one other team I saw up there was Kyle Stifler had his assassins up there from Enterprise.
Mm.
He had some nice squads on both the boys and girls side. So yeah, Panhandle was well represented. These type of tournaments. Truly, I didn't attend too many of these dual style events growing up. I don't know if you did either, mainly because they weren't so much a thing. Um,
I
but these
remember
go
them.
ahead.
I know I remember them, but this is the first like real big tournament I've been to in a while. So like there's a part of me I'm like, oh yeah, these things are long. And it's different, when you're on in 30s, when you're, as to when you're like 14 and you can take like a
Sure.
nap in between stuff.
I
So
can use a bunch
it
of
was a
those.
reminder. It makes me thankful for the people that put that stuff on. Which I do shout out to Billy Edwards, a old college friend of mine that was admitting the tournament. I saw him run around everywhere trying to put out like little fires when track or whatever went down. So he was a big part of that running so smoothly. So I wanted to give him a shout out there.
Yeah, he did a great job. Where I was going with that though is I didn't attend too many of these dual style events, but I did attend a lot of individuals, and you very quickly learn about the levels you kind of talked about. And we saw that early with pretty much all the teams. We took a lot of beatings. To put it kindly, we took a lot of beatings. We learned a lot of lessons, but the key word there is learned, because I do feel like the kids kind of did better on day two in most instances, and the way they were wrestling and the way they were, battling through positions that they weren't quite doing on day one. And these types of events, while they're hard, while they're difficult, and while they will put you through the meat grinder, so to speak, you're going to become better as a result of just attending and sometimes taking those beatings. Um, but I really think they're great for our area to continue to get involved in. I know that Niceville's always been going to these, at least recently over the last 2 to 3 years. And we've had a number of kids on our team that kind of individually go to them. But starting something like this with the Punishers and Not Plain Janes to kind of give a, 3, 4 times a summer outlet for these types of events are it's going to raise the level of our area so quickly. Like, you very quickly see what's out there, and a kid that doesn't get beat very often locally, getting tech-falled as Bear Weslowski did. Those of you that are listening that know who Bear is, the kid is 10 years old and he's won pretty much everything there is to win, including national events and stuff. And our first match against Roundtree, it was a minute and 30 seconds, 16-0 tech fall he took. He had a rough go with it, and but that is going to make Bear work a lot harder in the practice room to try to get to that level that he knows now exists.
One, all I will say, like all the kids took the losses really well. Steven, Thaxton, Bear, Cheney, like they had matches where they got worked, or like a couple matches in a row where they got worked, but they still, they never really seemed to let it get to them too much. Not to let it bother them, be able to shake it off and then rebound into the next match. So it speaks to the level of just the IQ in the area. I'd love to see this team, run it back. Some of the kids that are a little bit older that, move on into the high school division. Maybe we have send a high school team next year, but see a lot of these kids end up on the same team and the same camaraderie. And like you said, have that same experience at a big dual team tournament and being like, okay, we've been here before. Like I remember this last year being here with you. Like, that pays dividends itself. We'd be more prepared for that first match. You know what I mean?
Totally agree. And to the point about running it back, I think everybody that helped coach, that I want to shout them all out real quick before we get too much further. Coach Fish over at Niceville helped us out a ton with the K through 4. You, Jordan, helped a ton with the K through 4. We had Coach Birch at the K through 8 level. At the Not Plain Janes, we had myself. We had Coach LaFountain from Mosley. And then I don't remember her last name, but we had one of his former athletes who is now in college come try to help out some of the Mosley girls that were on our team. First name is Savannah, but she pretty much jumped in as the ipso facto head coach, because I think when you're dealing with female athletes, they really relate well to females. So it was so nice to have her there.
I saw that. That was so cool.
It was amazing. And I mean, so here's just a good example of her being just a good coach, good person. Is like, me as a male, a girl comes off the mat and she's upset, she's crying. All I can really do is kind of like slap her hand and say, like, good match, we'll get them next time, that kind of thing. Savannah is grabbing girls, hugging them, telling them they did amazing. It just brings that female perspective that just a male can't do.
Yeah, dude, I didn't know that she jumped in. I wouldn't you I thought she was planning to be in there.
No, she had um, Coach LaFountain let me know that he had himself that was coming, and then he had a few assistants that were going to come kind of lend a hand where they could. And I met her on the first day, and we were trying to kind of figure out who was going to play what roles as head coach and doing the clipboard and all that thing. And I said, it might be nice if you want to jump in and kind of play that role for us here. And she said, I'll take it. And did she ever? And she did such a dang good job.
Yeah, she knocked it out of the
I
park.
wish I could. I wish I could remember her last name to give her the proper kudos. But if she's listening, absolutely phenomenal, and would love to have her for future ones because, not only me thinking that, I had parents coming up to me asking for contact information for her because they wanted to thank her for such an amazing job. So, yeah, really want to give her kudos there. But yeah, so we had all these coaches, and I think the consensus is that we want to run it back. We want to keep it going. We want to get more people involved. Obviously, a lot of the Panhandle teams took their own club here, but in the future, if we can get kind of two or three, not mega teams, but good compiled teams to take this Panhandle, the group in the Panhandle that is really ready for this, I think that we could do very, very well. And B, it's just going to help raise the level. And that's really what this is all about. You go to these tournaments as a up and comer, not to go there and win the whole darn thing. You go there to get the experience so that the next time you go to one of these, you can do a little better. Just slowly climb that ladder, which is very similar to wrestling in general. You're just climbing the ladder and getting better each time out, figuring out where you screwed up and how you get better from it. So the Tri-State Tough Girl or Tough Guy, Tough Girl series that we set up, it came as an idea from Coach Pafford at Wakulla, who I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Punishers and the Not Plain Janes. Coach Pafford really helped us a lot with the K-4 team as well, with Coach Fish and yourself. And so I want to make sure I mention him. But he came up with the idea of trying to do something for the North Florida kids as far as IOF has their state series where it's 10 or 15 qualifier events, and then you wrestle in the IOF state. And he said we should do something like that in season for our kids so that the ones that can't make it over to, Kissimmee or wherever it's held have something to kind of fight for and say, I'm a champion of North Florida. And so that kind of coincided with the idea that we've done 2 of these Warzone series now. They've gone pretty well. People seem to like them. And my only kind of caveat with his idea was I didn't necessarily want to do it in season and compete with IOF because we go to all the IOF events and, it's a really good series. And so we decided to do it during the fall and make it kind of like a preseason, some sort of a championship for our area. And it kind of evolved from trying to do it as 3 or 4 events to I reached out to all my normal contacts who host these events for our series. And instead of getting 3 or 4 that were interested, I got 11. And so I wasn't really sure how to go about trying to fit them all in or choose who gets to run one and who doesn't. And my wife is pretty smart, and she said, why don't you just make it tri-state? Because you have people in Georgia that want to host, you have people in Alabama that want to host, you have people in Florida that want to host. Rather than do a North Florida preseason championship, make it a tri-state thing. And so Tri-State Tough Guy kind of just came into my head, and I ran with it. And I think we've got some really cool things planned. So we've got 11 events over the course of from August 26th to November 4th. We have it set up kind of like IOF, where you have to attend qualifiers. You just have to attend, not even place, to be able to come to the finale, which is November 4th at Florida High in Tallahassee. And at the finale, we've spent a lot of time and money getting these awards right because we really wanted to make it super cool for the kids to want to attend. So all the champions, which there's 92 weight classes across boys and girls, we're going to give out 92 singlets to all the champs. Runner-ups are going to get a really cool looking custom hat that'll say series runner-up with the logo and all that stuff. And then all the third placers will get shorts. At every single event, all 11 will have team awards for the top three. There's a company out of Weewahitchka, Tracy Malcolm, the Weewahitchka head coach, put me in touch with a gentleman who makes these really cool wood burnt awards. And so we come up with a cool design, and they look really, really awesome. And so we're going to kind of award the top three teams for each one to say, like, we brought the strongest team there. Hopefully that provides some numbers and get some coaches wanting to bring some kids to get into that team race aspect of it, which is a fun part of wrestling tournaments. And then we've got a whole bunch of other awards. We've got like a road warrior type award where we called it the traveling tough guy or the traveling tough girl, where if you attend 7 out of the 11 events, you just automatically get this cool trophy that says, I put in the work to better myself. Whether or not you win, you lose, whatever. It's just, if you show up for 7 tournaments in 11 weeks, you deserve some recognition. So we have that. We also have the what we call the Brutal Brawler Award, which is a championship style belt. It's going to be, you have to win first place at 4 qualifiers and then also follow that up by winning the Tri-State Tough Guy finale or Tough Girl finale. And so if you do those 2 things, you get the big championship belt. There's all kinds of other cool awards. What I think is neat about this series is it's going to provide an outlet for a lot of us in this area to get a lot of competition heading into, the regular season, which is kind of why we do all the off-season stuff, so that you put your best version of yourself onto the mat during the season. You kind of grow through the off-season and experiment and get better. And so we're going to have 11 weeks of battling one another before we head into the grind of the high school season or the middle school season, or for our youth, the IOF season, or, whatever different state series they want to get into.
No, I like it, man. How are we breaking up the weight classes and ages?
So age and weight class is a little different than typical. And so, and I'll be completely transparent with this. Planning wise, it's to order 92 singlets and 92 pairs of shorts and all that stuff. It's expensive. It's not cheap to do all that stuff. So I had to cut the weight classes a little bit. Traditional USA weight classes, there would have been about 120 of them. So we cut it down to, we changed the age group slightly. So instead of 6U, we did 4 to 6 years old. Instead of 8U, we did 7 to 9 years old. Instead of 10U, we did 10 to 12 years old. Then we have a 13 through 15, and then we have a high school. And so we essentially, by combining those, we were able to cut out 1 full age group's worth of weights, which allowed us to spend the money needed to buy these ridiculous prizes for these kids. It's running a wrestling tournament is not inexpensive, and this is out there publicly, but these are all fundraisers for the programs that are hosting. It's I want to be very clear with people that I am not getting rich off of this endeavor. This is not, Coach Jason at Grappling House is making 11 tournaments worth of registration fees. These are, if Niceville hosts one of these, and Niceville's program directly profits and grows as a result of that event. If Lincoln hosts one, Lincoln's program gets the money. And so that's a very big goal of mine with the series. North Florida in general, and South Georgia, South Alabama, those 3 regions, I don't want it to be like this forever, but we are kind of the low man on the totem pole as far as the rest of the state. And I believe that a lot of that has to do with funding. We, at the youth level, we don't have a ton of funding. A lot of people do a lot of fundraisers and things, but we don't have a lot of programs because the funding isn't there. And therefore we don't get middle school programs because there aren't youth parents who just wrestled for 5 years knocking on the door of the athletic director saying, hey, we need wrestling in this school. And so my goal from this whole thing is, let's get a whole bunch of programs, a whole bunch of money. Let's let them continue to grow so that when they're their 6-year-old becomes 12 and he gets into middle school. Now you got a group of 30 kids that just wrestled for 5 years and they want to continue in middle school. What are those 30 parents going to do? They're going to go to their school board and say, hey, we need a middle school wrestling program. And in my mind, what does that do for the growth of the region? If now 12 middle school programs are created out of thin air, now you have all the pieces you need to match the rest of the state, because Miami has that, Tampa Bay has that, Orlando has that. They have the youth, middle, and high school, and they just feed right up until ninth grade, where and
I know, man. Dude, trust me. In Panama City, we talk about it time and time again. Is whenever they got rid of middle school wrestling, that was when things got a little bit tougher to like fill up those high school spots. Because especially with the youth one, especially because you do have to pay money, especially if it's year round, like just get quality instruction, and then you have your high school where it's you have a little bit more serious athletes. Middle school is such that perfect time to catch that like casual kid who might be outgrowing one sport or never heard of it before or would never have her parents never would have gotten them into it, if it had been like, oh, we got to take you to a $70, $80, $100 a month club, they
right.
can just, oh, I signed up for the wrestling team in middle school. And then they got that 6, 7 years to work, once they get into high school.
I completely agree. And that, if you're talking about our area's evolution and how we match the rest of the state, and the northern region of Florida and the southern region of Alabama and Georgia, the answer is find a way to get into the middle schools. If we do
Well,
that,
who so it's been a while since I've been out. Who does Wakulla wrestle with? Like, do they have like so the middle school wrestling team that they have? What do they compete in? Do they have a conference or like is there an area in which they just can't come over?
yeah, so I'm not super familiar with it, but I do know. So the two area middle schools that offer are Wakulla and Florida High. Um, and they compete with one another a lot. They have a North Florida Junior High Championships every year. Um, Sewanee, I believe, might have middle school wrestling.
I know they do.
The I should say Cairo, like it's Egypt. I've been corrected so many times. Cairo in Georgia has a middle school program. Pretty much all
Jacksonville.
those Georgias. Thomasville has a middle school program. Georgia, it's pretty widespread with having access to middle schools. But here in North Florida, it's few
It's
and
so
far.
weird. It really is. It like really Okaloosa, we don't have it. Bay County used to have it, doesn't have it.
Yep.
Like it
Lincoln, I know, does not have it. Childs does not have it. Lincoln now has a youth program. They've started T Town with Joe McMillan runs that up with Coach Birch. But a program like that, they're traditionally very good at the high school level, because the coaches at Lincoln are extremely good at taking a ninth grader that's never wrestled before and figuring it out in 4 years for that kid, and or helping them figure it out for themselves, I guess is a better term. But um, imagine where they would be if they had a middle school program. Imagine where they would be if they could take some of these kids that come up through the T-Town program that they've built as youth and filter them right into middle school with a coach that teaches their system, so that in ninth grade, those kids come up ready to go. They know everything about how a Lincoln wrestler wrestles and exactly what they're supposed to know. And now you're just making tweaks at the high school level instead of teaching first years. Imagine how much better your program does in that instance. And I use Lincoln as an example, but that pretty much goes for any program, not just in our state, but in the nation. If you have that foundation where you wrestle youth, middle, high, your high school wrestlers come to high school understanding what the heck's going on. And you don't have to waste a lot of time teaching first year moves or hand control or how to get in a stance, how to move your feet. Like all that's already well absorbed over 1,000 matches from the time you were 6 or 7.
and they just have the mentality of like coming in like, oh, I'm a wrestler. Like it
Yep.
takes a minute to build that into somebody, and then once they have it, it's like, all right, you're ready to get better. So if you can get them coming into that high school like with that mindset, it helps. But that's why we
Completely.
have these events. We're very thankful for you putting all this stuff on. Giving these kids something to do. in the preseason and in a lot of areas. It's the only competition that they can get. Because a lot of stuff is down south. A lot of things are in over there in the eastern part of the state, which is a drive. So
Yeah,
it's nice to have some real events here for these kids to compete with.
absolutely. One more thing I want to mention on this that I'm personally extremely excited about. So somebody had asked, "Are you going to do adult divisions at these events?" And I said, "Maybe, probably not." And it may have been you. Um,
It
I
probably
think,
was me.
yeah. And I said maybe, but in my head it was like, we've tried it before. Nah, we'll see. So last night I decided to put out a poll, and I got 51 responses saying that they would wrestle. Now, do I expect 51 people to show up for this thing? Adults? Not really. Um, but it would be phenomenal if they did. But even if we get 10 or 15, it's a start. And so we created 4 new divisions just to see, just for this first event, August 26th at Lincoln. And what we did was a tough mom division, which is you're not allowed to have any prior experience ever. You're just a mom, or you're a college girl that wants to try this out, whatever. We did a tough dad, same thing, no prior experience whatsoever. You just watched your kid do it a little bit, and you want to have some fun with this. And then we did a tough man and tough woman, which is I've wrestled before. I'm either a coach, or I wrestled in high school, or I've got college experience, whatever. And we're going to separate those 4 divisions so that everybody gets a good experience out of it. But I'm super excited about it just because I want to see some of these panhandle folks that we've all seen at tournaments that maybe uh, are very, very involved with their kids wrestling, but haven't had the opportunity to try it out themselves. And just for them to feel what it feels like, a lot of times, you know, uh, you're watching your son or daughter go through a sport that you've never experienced. And from the sideline, it's easy to kind of go, like, why didn't he or she just do that? But you don't, unless you feel that position and understand that, well, yeah, except all the weight is on my hands, and now I can't move at all because 200 pounds are on my back, and all my weight is right here. Unless you feel that, it's kind of hard to gauge exactly what your kid's going through. And
You
so,
you might have finally started adult wrestling, man.
what's that?
I said you might finally start adult wrestling in this area.
It would be so cool.
'Cause it's just yeah. There's so much around the competition. Sometimes just get out there and do it. Like
That's it. So we'll see. I'm hoping we can get you on board to wrestle.
if
Uh,
I'm there, my kids are playing soccer, so I might be at a soccer game, unfortunately. But if I can get there, I'm for sure signing up. You throw me
awesome.
anybody about 180 pounds and down, and I'll see what's going on.
Yeah, we've split the division so that it's like, for the men at least, it is 150 and below, 151 to 180, 180 to 205, and then 205 plus. So we've only got like 4 weight divisions in each to keep it kind of working, but I'm excited for it. I
Hey,
think
I know
it'll be.
Florida State has a wrestling club. I'll tell them to come out there. I'll be
That's
like,
it. I definitely plan to reach out to Coach Simmons and let him know, like, hey, get some kids out there. Um, so it'll be fun. You're gonna see a lot of coaches putting some of this stuff to test that they tell their kids on a daily basis. You're gonna see a lot of moms and dads out there not fully knowing what they're doing, but having a blast doing it with kids cheering and yelling and all that. I've not told anybody this yet, and I officially retired the last tournament I did 4 years ago, but I'm coming out. I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to have fun with this. So the August 26th, I think I'll do the 205 division because I'm a little chunky now. But we're going to have some fun with it. We'll see if we can't set an example and get some other people to throw their names in the ring and have a good time with it.
dude, the kids are gonna love it. I'm not gonna lie, like, not to end it, but like, I know I had a coach, my middle school coach, Coach Landon. Obviously I had 3 years worth of experience, 4 years of experience of like, practicing under him. But my one of the things that stand out is seeing him go out and wrestle at a tournament. Like he put on the singlet to go and wrestle. I don't even remember who he wrestled. I don't think he did, great at all, or like he had, wrestled in forever, but like it wasn't win or losing. It was just seeing him like, lacing it up, putting on the straps, going out there, and like it's a cool experience. Like, so any parent that is, and I've been out there too. Like I'm since I have come out of retirement, I think I'm like 0-3. My kids watched me get like pushed halfway across the mat by like a guy that's like 250. But like they said, they're like, oh man, that was really cool. Like I'm
Yeah,
like,
you
yeah,
went out and put it on the line. Right
yes,
on.
that's all it's about, man. And they can't look at, they can't pull the whole like, oh, but you don't. I'm like, I know exactly what it's like. So go to
Yep,
practice.
that's it. So hey, I want to be clear too. We are not requiring singlets for adults. You can wear them if you want, but don't let that be a barrier to entry. If you're thinking like, man, I would love to do this, but I'm not wearing that singlet, you don't have to. Shorts and a t-shirt. I'd prefer wrestling shoes. All adults must have the AAU competitor card. They have an adult coaching card that requires a background check and a long, I think it's like a 7 to 10 day wait. But then they also have the adult competitor card where you're going to compete and enter. You must have that. If you're a coach, you got to go buy the secondary card. Um, Not my rules, AAU's rules, but for insurance purposes, we have to have that, and you don't need to wear a singlet. Just be comfortable and come have some fun with it, because at the end of the day, wrestling's a fun sport, and you're going to have an opportunity to kind of see what your kids have gone through and feel, in 3 minutes, it sometimes feels like a little bit longer, and you'll get to imagine when your kids go and grind for 2.5 hours at a practice, what that actually feels like.
True. All right, man. Yeah, no, it was good, man. So we'll catch up with you as the tournaments go and see how these kids are doing.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me.
All right, and big thanks for Jason for coming back on, talking Deep South with the Panhandle Punishers and the Not Plain Janes with me, and talking about that Tri-State Tough Guy, Tough Girl series on the horizon. First one's coming up on August 26th. Everybody make sure you get signed up and get there. It's going to be great competition to kick us off and send us into the season, whatever you're going at the youth, middle school, or high school level, as well as going to be an adult division, guys. Get out there, let it all on the line, have some fun. Oh, man, we'll be there.